Well, Geraint Johnes is Professor of Economics at the University of Lancaster. I asked how bad unemployment is likely to get in the UK once the job retention scheme ends this October.
We do know from HMRC pay-as-you-earn data in real time that there has been a collapse in employment, that there are 600,000 people less on the payroll now than was the case in March. And we also know that the claimant count data have gone up very rapidly since March. So in March we had 1.2 million claimants. In May, 2.8 million claimants. So that's an increase of 1.5 million in just 2 months. Absolutely unprecedented. And that's likely to be a leading indicator for what happens for unemployment. The key, as you point out, is what happens to people who have been furloughed on the government special scheme. And if many of those return to work, then we can anticipate a reasonably quick recovery. If many take time to return to work, then recovery is going to be that much slower. And we can expect it to be slower in the sectors that aren't allowed to start up business again, or those that can only resume business on very compromised terms. Having to have more space for each worker to work in, for example, could adversely affect firms in manufacturing.
The furlough scheme has kept many people afloat for the time being. Total running cost of all government support schemes nears 67 billion. Can the UK economy sustain and absorb that kind of cost for much longer?
That's an eye-watering figure, isn't it? £67 billion. And that has to be financed out of increased taxation or reduced government spending or increased borrowing. And at least there's a chink of light in that interest rates are very low. This is a good time for government to be borrowing because the cost of that borrowing is relatively low.
Geraint, let's talk about recovery. What's your view? I mean, are we going to see a bounce back of what shape? Is this going to be what they keep calling a V-shaped recovery, or are you expecting something rather more gradual and painful crawling upwards?
It'll depend on the sector that we're looking at. There are some areas of the economy that can recover relatively quickly. A lot of the economy, of course, has carried on working. So key workers have carried on working. People who are able to work from home have carried on working through all this. So it's the gap that's left by that quarter to a third of the economy that has been missing for the last few months. That's what we need to focus on here. Some businesses will be able to recover relatively quickly. Others need space in which to operate, and they won't be able to resume their previous operations as they were before without social distancing affecting their operations adversely. And yet others, such as the hospitality industry, of course, are not being allowed to resume at all at this stage. And those last bits of the economy to come back are going to be the most problematic because some of their workers won't be covered for the duration by the furlough scheme, and there's likely to be a large increase in unemployment there.